Well, welcome everyone. Today I'm playing two roles. I am typically one of the leads with our community engagement job alike, but we thought that talking about the community pet pantry efforts might be a great place to start to really involve everyone out there. We've learned that there's many versions of community engagement, and the different programs and services that we offer can vary. But as a pet pantry, we thought it might be a really great place to start, or because many of us have them in a variety of forms, but also for those of you that don't have one that were really interested, that this might be a great forum to just kind of learn a little bit about not only what San Diego Humane Society does, but just the impact that it's made and maybe how you can roll it out from, whether it be as small as just serving a few people a week to, growing it to 1,000 a week like we do. So since I am not truly the expert, I've been working with Quinn for the last year and a half, supporting the community pet pantry as part of our community engagement team. Now I've known Quinn for a bit longer, but he's been doing this for 10 plus years. So I invited Quinn Douglas-Hiley, our community pet pantry supervisor, to really take the lead on this presentation today, and he can give you some great insight on what he's learned over the years, and of course what we're doing at San Diego Humane Society. And then I will be behind the scenes looking at chat, so if you have questions, feel free to drop it in there and I'll try to answer, but of course hopefully we'll have time at the end to roll that out. So I am going to stop talking and introduce Quinn.
Hi, everybody. Thanks, Elkie. Again, my name is Quinn Douglas-Hiley. I'm the Community Pet Pantry Supervisor for San Diego Humane Society, which is part of our community engagement team. And yes, I've been doing this for a very long time, over 10 years. Started with a very small grassroots nonprofit, and over the years, we've built that up to assisting over 1,000 people each week and distributing over 1,000 pounds of pet food each and every day to the community and our partners. So Elkie and I put a little slideshow together. We just put this together, so bear with me. Elkie, I encourage you to jump in if I'm missing anything. But we're just going to do a little overview of how we work with the community, a little bit about what we do, and maybe some tips and tools if you want to jumpstart one of your pantries or possibly take it to the next level. So with that being said, just kind of getting into the philosophy a little bit, we understand that, pet food often isn't moving the needle. It's not the #1 reason why pets are being relinquished to shelters, but it is, it's a real issue. Food scarcity and hunger are real issues facing millions of people every day, and that absolutely trickles down to their pets as well. So being able to position ourselves in the community as a resource to help folks that are struggling, it might be on a temporary basis, it might be ongoing, but just being able to work with those folks and offer those supplies and using that as a tool to make other connections and really to identify other needs beyond the pet food and supplies that might actually end up moving the needle or increase the quality of life for the pet at the end of the day. So we have some of those things here that we really try to identify if their pet needs to be spayed or neutered, vaccinated, microchipping. I mean, you can read it there. And then some of those essential supplies that really can up the quality of life, leashes, collars, harnesses, things like that. And, it's at the end of the day, when you have free items, you're going to lure people in. If you have a booth set up with just some educational materials, you might not get that attention that a booth with a couple free items, some food, maybe like a pet mannequin to just draw some eyeballs with a collar, leash, harness that you're offering. Those kinds of things really draw interest in what you're doing and bring folks over, and then you can really start learning more about them and the needs of their pets. So and what we're doing is we're just trying to be support folks. Maybe it's the next trip to the grocery store, we can help them get by until that next trip or save a little bit. But we do find that we see a lot of folks week after week, month after month that are factoring us in to their weekly budgets or monthly budgets and utilizing those cost savings. And really what it comes down to is convenience. So, identifying those areas where there's a need and bringing those resources to those folks to make it as convenient as possible to take advantage of those resources. trying to partnering with the community and just trying to make that one-stop shop for those folks. So finding those strategic partners that might already be offering a community service. They might have a food pantry. They might be doing congregate meals, but they're in that area you want to be. They're helping your target demographic. And it's a great way to just partner up. They can add that additional service offering to their menu of services. They already have a pre-established community that they're serving. And it's a way to just plug in, make it more of a one-stop shop experience. And it really just reduces those barriers to accessing services at the end of the day. And that's what's most important. So we listed some of those things here. Some of those barriers that could potentially come up are transportation, fuel costs, time away from work, just distance in general. And like I said, we're finding those community partners. We're ecosystem mapping. We're finding those like resource deserts, or what we've termed them, where there's no pet stores, there's no vet offices, no pet shelters, just no pet services in close proximity, and us being able to just add those services and starting with the pet food and then identifying those other needs. And then some of the partner sites that we typically tend to look for that are helping our target audiences are what we have listed here: a lot of churches. They're doing a lot of ministry services, community centers, outreach organizations that have some overlap in clientele, assisted living facilities, schools, you name it, just people centers where folks are congregating, trying to identify and establish those relationships and seeing if they're interested in offering an additional service with pet food and supplies.
I'm going to interrupt, Quinn, because it won't let me forward. So I'm sorry. I'm going to figure out why my
Quinn, while that happens, can I ask you a quick question about, I love how you talked about partnering with churches and other community centers. How did you engage in reaching out to folks? Like, did you have a strategy in which organizations you talked to? Did you have a standard pitch when you reached out to them? How did that work?
Really, yeah, it's a good question. It's learning the communities first. So seeing what's available in those communities, and then really just making those connections. A lot of times you reach out to a group and they might not be ready to add on an additional service. So you often, might not get a reply, but really it's finding those groups that have that interest in adding services, and then making that connection with them. And really at the end of the day, what we come in and we're offering the food, the supplies, we're packaging it, we're making it as turnkey as possible for them. And that's our way of just selling it. It's making it as convenient for them to offer it as a convenience to their clientele and their communities that they're already serving.
Quinn, do you think that, so prior to San Diego Humane Society and the days of PAWS, for those of you that don't know, we merged. PAWS was an organization that provided a lot of these services already before San Diego Humane Society started working with them. But did you find it was a balance of just kind of word of mouth, or did you go actively searching and soliciting?
Well, I think with entering a new community like that, you have to take the grassroots approach and really just immerse yourself, find out where folks are going within that community, where are the gathering points, where is, walk the shoes of somebody that might be struggling, where are they getting help, and just talking to people, and then finding those partners and who wants to work with us and just establishing those relationships over time. But it's absolutely taking that grassroots approach and just getting yourself out there and letting folks know you exist.
So we kind of roll it. Can you see where we're at? I want to make sure you're seeing what I'm seeing. Decrease waste.
Yes, and okay. I think we had a question. From Stacy, yes. Elkie, do you want to jump on that question?
Well, and I think what's happening when I go to chat, because I'm sharing, it freezes my chat. And if for somebody that's Zoom savvy, maybe I probably should have had.
I'm happy to help with questions in the chat if we can just all collaborate together. Or even Quinn, if you can see the chat, you're welcome to stop it.
Yeah, I'll
just pick them out.
And you know what? We'll just get through this and then we'll jump into the chat and the Q&A right after this.
Thanks, Quinn. Sorry about that.
Oh, no, no worries.
That it messes with the sharing when I.
So this slide is just getting into, some of the benefits of creating a food and supply donation inlet into your organization and the benefits that come with that. I mean, there are so many folks that want to find a second life for their pet food. Maybe it's their pet didn't like it. They just lost a pet. There's a million reasons why somebody might end up with supplies and they want to find a new home for that, and they find you in that process, and that could be the start of a great relationship. That it can start with a couple cans of food and end up with a check, a monetary donation to a service that you're offering that might be more impacted than your pantry program. So it's just a way to make those connections with the community and identify new donors in the process. So we find it as a win-win, and that really opens up the other channels where you can start partnering with other groups that might be able to whether it's a pet store, a local Walmart, Target store, you name it, just creating that inlet of where you can receive donations and goods. It's just a win-win for your organization, and then you have those supplies available to then redirect into the community to struggling pet owners.
I'm sorry. I'm the worst. I'm the worst navigator.
Okay, I'm going to jump on this question right now. Do we have any concerns about using open food? And I'll answer that. It is a concern, but it's something that we've never actually in practice ran into any issues doing. We do try to encourage folks to donate the food in the original packaging that it came in. It just helps us know what it looks like, what it is, and then but as far as like taking damaged food, used food, I mean, at the end of the day, we really look at it as if we would give it to our pets, we'd be comfortable giving it to the community's pets. And I personally have no issues taking those supplies in, and we have, in the hundreds of thousands of pounds of food that we've received and donated and distributed over the years, we've never really run into that issue. But if you can see on this slide here, we do put a hold harmless, legalese at the bottom of our inserts that go into each bag of food, and that just gives us a little extra layer of protection just in case something does happen and something unforeseeable happens. It just protects us in those unforeseen circumstances. Hope that answers your question.
So that the first part of the presentation really was kind of focused on, kind of the role that pantries can play in the community and different ways you can look at it and the benefits, obviously the benefits. But we also then wanted to highlight what we do, so you can kind of see how we make this stuff, we make it happen. We make those 1,000 meal, or those 1,000 people a month, or what is it, a month, a week, Quinn, get the food that they need and get the supplies that they need. So we really, Quinn and I worked on this priorities statement here because it's not just fulfilling the needs at the campuses, it's also, like I said, getting out into the communities, using the food as a touch point just to really start and building conversations. Well, then we're like, okay, well, we do have to worry about supply and demand and managing expectations. So we thought it would be a good idea, not only for us, but also for our community engagement team, who's also going out and building relationships and having conversations and offering up food and food distribution opportunities. So we came up with this statement that San Diego Humane Society's Community Pet Pantry is one element of the organization's community support service initiatives that supports people and pets in need. The Community Pet Pantry acts as our initial touch point with community members or as a resource to enhance community partnerships. Not only are we able to offer supplemental food, but also important supplies that promotes pet welfare, i.e. crates, harnesses, toys, flea medication, and just whatever sometimes random weird things might come up that other pet families might need. And so we kind of listed out our priorities that, Quinn's first priority is making sure that each of our campuses, which is 4 companion animal locations, has the supplies that they need to fulfill the walk-up. So our campuses are open Tuesday through Sunday, and that means we're handing out food and supplies Tuesday through Sunday as well. Then we work very closely with Greater Good, and we're one of their partners, which means rescue groups come to us to get some food. And so we have to make sure that because we are contracted with Greater Good, that those partners get the food that they need. Of course, our community engagement partners and focus neighborhoods that we're working closely with, then community food banks, and then rescue groups outside of partnerships, because I believe, Quinn, just as our rescue team works with about, is there like 300?
Over 500.
500 are on their list of partner rescue groups. So,
and these are partners that exit animals from our shelter, so making sure they're prioritized, and then working with our other just pantry rescue partners to help those folks out. Okay, we're going to get in right now a little bit into some of our best practices, and maybe this is something you can cherry pick for your individual programs. But really, something I learned over the years is standardization is the key. You know, I see a lot of smaller pantry programs that are, you know, working with donated goods, and they might not have the resources to repackage them, but it's something that I found really helps everything you're trying to do. A couple examples to kind of illustrate that would be, you know, if you're doing a first come first serve and you don't know what your event's going to look like, you have the potential to run out of food. You might have folks in line that are receiving different quantities. You might be running out of, you know, wet food halfway through, and then those folks, you know, remaining in the line don't get that same experience. And then also just somebody that got 15 pounds of food, they want to expect that on their next visit. So really it's all about just standardization, setting expectations, and lowering that potential for disappointment. And, you know, it does take that extra effort, you know, getting those standard bags. I can, if anyone's interested in repackaging their food, I'd be happy to share some of the bags that we use. And then I'll get into some of the language that we use in our inserts, but really also connecting with our partners, the standardization practices help so much, because, you know, if they're servicing 45, 50 people each month, instead of saying, hey, we could use some dog food and some cat food, and we're just going into our pantry and seeing what we can put together, they can really request, hey, can we get 30 bags of cat food, 25 bags of dog food, some wet food, some treats, whatever we have available, and they can get that same amount each and every time that we make that connection with them. And it really just helps our partnership with them and really helps the community that they're serving at the end of the day.
So you can see here, everyone, how she's boxing up this food, and this is Quinn's way of standardizing what those partners are going to get. So they'll say, oh, I would like 2 boxes of wet food. So they get a box like this of wet food to take out, and then they know what to expect. And of course, being that if we have the wet food to provide them.
And again, it comes back to convenience. We could send our partners all those cases of wet food still in their packaging, but that might deter them from getting it out to their community. So we really try to make it as turnkey as possible for our partners. And then when we do those direct distributions as well, and part of those practices come down to standardization. So yeah, what you're seeing here is one of our amazing volunteers going in, and we have the assembly line set up where we have the bulk stuff. We have what they're either filling up, whether it's boxes or bags, and then we have, you know, pallets or large bins to store those items. And it really just helps just move everything, keep everything standardized, set those expectations, and it comes down to us utilizing those amazing volunteers. I mean, we do some really cool stuff, but we couldn't do it without the support of our volunteers. And they, you know, we can move the mountains as a program and my team, but when it comes down to the little things, of processing those donations and getting those bags filled and working with our partners, we really rely on our volunteers, and we pump them up. And we elevate them to where they're doing more advanced volunteer responsibilities. We have them working as liaisons between some of our partners. When we get to that point where we can't give our partner that tailored experience and we feel like they need more, this is an opportunity to utilize those volunteers where we're plugging them in with that organization. They're really just immersing themselves in those clients that they're serving and then relaying information back to us. And then we're just tailoring those services and just making that partnership as strong as it possibly can be. So utilizing volunteers in different capacities. And it can be tough finding those volunteers, especially in a shelter. Your typical volunteer they're coming in, they're expecting to, interact with animals. But when you do find those volunteers, and it takes sometimes having to sell yourself and explain the big picture, because it is hard, often repetitive work. But when you do find those volunteers, and oftentimes it's those volunteers that they have so much going on in life and they need that, coming in and doing a menial task like this is cathartic for them. They can check out of the chaos in their normal world and just plug into this, and they feel really good when they take a step back and they've helped put together a 1,000-pound order that's going to go out to the community the next day, and we're making sure they understand that this is going to go, this is going to a senior center, this is going to help low-income folks, and really just explaining the why, because it is tough, hard work at the end of the day. But just finding those creative ways to utilize volunteers so you can expand your operations. Okay, so another way to connect with the community are doing food drives, and it's an area where we've had really great success over the years, and it doesn't require a lot of hands-on from us. It's really just giving those individuals and groups the tools they need and what we need to set them up for success. And it's a win-win when they're able to have a good supply drive. It helps us out, and through those processes, we're often identifying, philanthropic individuals that understand what we're doing. They might not have heard of our program before, and next thing you know, they're becoming supporters and offering their services and their time. And then another thing we're doing, we're trying to take advantage of this virtual world that we're living in right now, is utilizing virtual supply drives. We have Amazon, and then we've been doing. We've been asking for pledges as well. You can put up a stock photo. If we need dry cat food, you put up a picture of, we often work with like Sam's Club. We put up a picture of a Sam's Club bulk bag of cat food. Each bag's $18. How many pledges can we get? How many bags would you like to buy? And then we include a little PayPal link where they can make those contributions. So yeah, just a great way to connect with the community and identify new donors and supporters.
Yeah, we know, we get a lot of kid requests too on how they can help. And so we often offer, doing supply drives for schools is a great way for them to get involved, especially if you can't have kids volunteering at your shelter.
And then budgeting. I know that can be tough, especially with some of the smaller programs, and we get that. I mean, I did start with a very, very small pantry, and we had to make every pound of food count and do more with less sometimes. But so really what it comes down to, and when I say plan A through Y, what I mean is plan B is buying food. Everything else is getting creative. It's soliciting donations. It's working with what you got. Sometimes it's, if we have to, dial back just a little bit, but really it's trying to make sure that we're not ever getting to a point where we're completely interrupting services, and those folks that count on us those services are interrupted. That's when we have to sometimes roll out, get into the budget and purchase some food just to get by. But really it's getting creative, finding those donors and just squeezing what you can out of those donations, and tapping into that creativity side. That's a big part of the job, and understanding that pet food does have a shelf life, so there are naturally going to be a pool of donors out there that are trying to write off their expiring goods, or they have a store that's closing, or they have damaged goods. We work with Target, Walmart, local pet stores, local manufacturers. When even a store like Target, once a week we have a volunteer that goes out, and they have about a shopping cart full of gently damaged goods or returns, and we're happy to take it. And it's just another connection that we're making. And then that Walmart talks to another Walmart, and then we're now working with 2 of them. So just it's that grassroots approach. It's just bringing in the food, bringing in the supplies, making those connections, and just getting really, really creative.
And I'll say, I came from a shelter in Yuma, so obviously a very small community compared to San Diego. And this was, 15 years ago, we also were able to work with the local Target, and I think Walmart as well. So we would go there. I had the same thing. I had the same donor who would go buy dog food, but then he'd also pick up food. So he would kind of do both. He was volunteering and donating at the same time. So it is possible kind of in any, as long as they kind of can understand and you have that committed pickup, right, Quinn? Because like they're very particular about like, we need you here on this day because they have to get that food out of the warehouse.
Yep.
But I think that's a really easy way of getting some food and supply and additional supplies too. It's not always just food.
And that's a great point. I definitely want to expand on that. One of my approaches that I always use, and it's helped us get to where we are now, is just outworking the competition, and making sure that when Walmart calls, you answer that call, because there's always a line of other groups that are happy to take that call, that are going to jump in on the supplies, and then you lose that connection that you've made with that, that rep at that particular Walmart. So it's investing that time into that donor, and then making sure you are at their disposal when those supplies need to get picked up. If they have extra items that you can tell you're doing them a favor by taking those off their hands, do that donor a favor, and it'll pay off in dividends down the road.
Okay. Do I need to scroll through the?
Yeah,
There's a lot of questions.
We got a couple questions. Yeah.
So Quinn, I just dropped a document in the chat. I went through and I grabbed all the questions for you so I can have them in one place, and you can just check them off as you go.
Love it. Thank you so much, Bobby. Let me open that up right now. Okay. Elkie, do you want to pull that up too so you can jump in?
Sure. Let's see. Yeah, and like Quinn, we get very creative with the items that we get. We had over COVID, we accepted boxes and boxes and boxes of hand sanitizer and wipes. And so they just went out to the human service groups along with the dog food, because we knew that they could use them as much as we could. So here's the big one, Quinn. How do we measure impact?
Good question. So we're looking at in-kind donations coming in. That's a metric that we can compare month after month, seeing what the donors are looking like, where we've had drop-offs, where there's potential. And then as far as output, let me pull up my spreadsheet here. We're looking at what our poundage going out to our partners, going out at our campus distribution sites. And then we also, we have a formula that we've taken from PetSmart Charities, where we're able to convert our pounds into meals, and I'm happy to include that as well. It's a simple formula that takes total pounds and then converts it to ounces, so it works for dry food and wet food. And then you're taking that the total ounces and then dividing it by either 5, which is how many. Oh, I got to go back to this. How much? Help me out, Elkie.
Oh.
How many?
You want me to do math? You're quite.
No, I'm sorry. How many individual ounces are in a meal based on that PetSmart formula? So it's just a nice way to take pounds, convert it to ounces, and you end up with meals. And it's a really big, sexy number that donors love to see and hear.
Yeah, so we include that in our impact report, and we have monthly and quarterly, updates that we include, that we share out. And so for Quinn, it's how many meals distributed, but then we also break out our rescue groups because those partnerships are so important to us. Not that all partnerships are, but it's good to know that we're not just helping the pet families, we're helping the groups that are, pulling animals from us and getting animals adopted as well.
And really, when we're making those connections through partnerships, it can be difficult to know how many individuals you're servicing with the food being provided. So what we end up doing is we we have a formula that takes, the total pounds going out, what that typically is packaged into to our partners, and then that spits out a average number of folks that we're servicing by factoring the pounds going out to each of those groups.
Since they get since they get a standardized bag, you can kind of guesstimate one person's getting 8 pounds. So
another benefit of standardization is it gives you a better rough idea of folks that are taking advantage of your services.
So what kind of data, this is the next question, Quinn, what kind of data are you seeking from partners and individuals?
From partners, we're looking for testimonials from our partners. We're looking for clients served. We're looking for photos, and these are things that we can then take and forward them to our donors, the people that make fill up our pantries, and really just showing them, hey, you donated this food. Here's a testimonial or photo of our partner utilizing that food, or a client receiving that food, and it's just, we package that all up and hope that, as part of that cultivation process with those donors to put ourselves at the top of the list to get more food. And
we do have, we do see, like, we help with, I think it's Serving Seniors, Quinn, who sends, and she'll say, we need help for this many people, but also Quinn really just is calculating how much food is going out, and then he's preparing the data. So not much is needed really from the partners or from individuals.
And I just said this in the chat, just to give you an idea. Yeah, we are distributing over 1,000 pounds of pet food each day, and that adds up to about 400,000 pounds of pet food each year. During the COVID year, that was one of our biggest years. There was a lot of donations coming down the pipe, and luckily we're set up where we have that capacity where we're able to take in truckloads of food and turn them around, get them to our partners. Some of those partners are big time operations, San Diego Food Bank, where they have their own network of partners, just being that hub of pet food that was coming in. And that COVID year, that March 2020 to March 2021, we distributed, when you calculated it to meals, was almost 3 million meals, individual meals went out to the community that year.
So one of the questions, the person who asked this might need to clarify a little bit, but this is, how do you organize your distribution? So I'll just say, like, for the shelters, people just walk in during our office hours, but are you referring to external distributions or partner distributions?
I can just
myself. Oh, sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Hi. Yeah, we have a question block, so you're answering all of our questions right now, which we appreciate. Hi, Quinn. My Jess, and this is Amanda. We operate the pet food bank at Seattle Humane. We do about 1.8 million meals a year. That's what we last calculated. And we partner with about 55 community organizations like you're discussing. But we also do individual pickups and deliveries for folks. And I think we're kind of seeking guidance or anything you might share, how you do like recurring pickups or like needs for folks, because we have people who've been using our services for years and years and years. And so it doesn't feel great to be like, just walk in and we'll see what we can do. We like to have appointments, but it's just difficult to track. And I'm also curious about like how you track your input and output, and if you use particular platforms. I'm kind of love any nitty gritty details you can share, but I also don't want to take up a ton of space. So.
Well, as far as input output, kind of got into that a little bit. I'm really just trying to focus on those metrics that are being requested by our philanthropy department. What are our donors looking for? What's moving the needle to bring in more donations? What are those sexy numbers that help pump up our program? And that's when you start getting into those big meal counts. Trying to estimate how many individuals you're servicing each month, each week. But I get what you're saying when it comes down to when you have those folks that you've been helping for years that are taking advantage of your services, but you feel like you've lost that, you're losing that connection where you're identifying needs beyond helping that pet with that food. And it's one of those things where you just got to keep at it. We do find that it can it can sometimes feel a little dirty or a little cold, making some of those distributions, especially when we go into a partner site where it's month after month, we're going in and early on, there's that excitement level, but 6 months in, it's like, hey, how you doing? Set up over here, get the food out. You're barely engaging with anybody, but at the end of the day, it's you're helping people out. It's an absolute need. And I know I'm kind of rambling right now. Can you jump back into some of the specific questions you had?
Well, here, Quinn, I'll go to some of the easy ones. How about that? And then we can kind of like some that we can just knock out. And then we'll kind of, and we can go into more depth on some of the logistics. So the bag size, I know we have 2 sizes.
Okay, cat food is for our campus distributions. This is where we're helping folks directly at our campus sites. We're doing a 4-pound bag of cat food and an 8-pound bag of dog food. For a cat, that is a 1-month supply of dry food. So 4 pounds is what your typical cat eats in a 30-day period. Again, we're marketing this service as supplemental. So we're not going in expecting to feed their pets, and those expectations are made very clear. We often find ourselves, we are feeding their pets for a full month at a time or a week at a time, just depending on how often they're coming in. But really, it's setting those expectations that this is just to help get you by. So with our direct campus distributions, like I said, 4-pound bags of cat food, 8-pound bags of dog food. And for our partners, we cut that in half. So we have 2-pound bags of cat food and 4-pound bags of dog food that we then put into boxes, much easier to distribute. And then wet food, we're taking in. Wet food we look at as almost a luxury. With cats, I understand that it can be a necessity, but wet food just doesn't come in like dry food. So we really try to just make sure that those dry food expectations are being met. And then we look at the wet food as a luxury item that we throw in when available. And
then I'm going to answer this and then you can take the second part. So staff, it was just Quinn for many, many years, managing
and a bunch of volunteers.
Many aspects, yes, of the pantry. But this year we were fortunate enough, we shifted a position. We had somebody leave, and so and our kind of community engagement team, we realized how much support Quinn needed, because again, this never stops, right? We can kind of stop events that we realized, during COVID. We can manage our schedules a lot easier when you're going out to events or scheduling things, but the food never stops, and the need obviously was there during COVID and beyond. So we were lucky to have a new person join. So there's 2 of them now, but that person also does a little bit of outreach. He is our one and only Spanish speaker on the team, so he gets pulled in a few different directions for that. But then volunteer-wise, Quinn, how many do we have that work specifically with the pantry?
We probably have a regular group of maybe 35 volunteers that are doing on-site activities and then off-site activities as well.
And let me say, for those of you I know that maybe have group service angst when those teams call you and they want to help at the shelter, this has been a great place to put them. And I do kind of explain that we don't need you walking dogs in the shelter, but this is truly what we need. And many of the groups take us up on it and they love it. So one-time corporate groups, military, etc., youth groups, because we can have younger kids in the pantry. So it's a great place to put groups as well.
And I'm seeing everybody's messages. I will be getting back to all of you with those requests. I'll send you some spreadsheets, send you some of our language that we use. Happy to share all that information.
Can you explain how we, the dietary needs, Quinn, and how we handle that?
Oh, when we have a specific diet request,
yeah.
That can be tough. Luckily, I've noticed over the years, a lot of the manufacturers are getting into the more natural food, getting away from, some of the artificial fillers, food colorings, things like that. So more often than not, we do have a steady supply. But we do get those requests for grain-free, which is that sexy term. And we're really just trying to explain that, grain-free, natural food, holistic food. It's really just trying to reduce those extra fillers. And the way we designate that, because we are distributing so much food, is we have just a simple sticker, color designated sticker that we slap on our label, and that tells the partner, or that tells whoever is distributing that food, that that particular bag of food is a natural food, and it gives that person a little extra assurance that it's going to be okay for their pet. But when you do get those specific requests where my pet can only eat, science diet, XYZ, that's where sometimes we're not going to be a long-term match for that person, or we're just encouraging them to take the food that we're giving them and supplement it with some of the food that their pet is comfortable with, and just trying to maximize what we have available.
Do we distribute basic items for people? This person's, get backpacks from Greater Good, and they've been helpful to have on hand for homeless and pet owners.
Yeah, I know those backpacks you're talking about. Those are great. We've been doing something similar for a few years where we essentially make our own. Backpacks are perfect for targeting folks experiencing homelessness with pets. That you can put a little bit of everything in there. Where if you encounter somebody that might just be holding a little puppy or kitten or not have much, you can really just give them that bag. It's got a little bit of everything: a water bottle, food, toy, treat, some education materials, food and water bowls, just basic essentials to help that person out.
But it doesn't have, typically we don't have human items in them.
No.
Sometimes we have nice blankets that are brand new, so whether they use them for themselves or their pets, that sometimes is an option, but we don't have any other human supplies like the basic.
And those backpacks, we have a Humane Law Enforcement Division at our shelter, and we collaborate with those teams and get those backpacks in each of their squad vehicles.
So let's go to partnerships. So there's a couple. Do we solicit? So we talked about how we solicit. I think we talked about that. Managing inventory, Quinn, I don't know how can you talk to that a little bit?
Well, when it comes to donations coming in, I'm a yes man. If a donor has something for us, I say yes, and I figure out how we're going to receive it and store it later. I feel like you just have to get a stranglehold almost on those donors, because there's a long list of groups that are happy to take that call and will be jumping the line to take those supplies. So it comes down to convenience. You want to be that first person to get there, establish that relationship, take those calls immediately, help that donor out, and they'll help you out. Sometimes take those supplies that might be a little bit of an inconvenience for you, but you recognize it's a slight inconvenience for them, and you're helping them out, and they might prioritize you for the next batch of good stuff that comes in. And that's a philosophy I've used to great effect over the years.
So I know, I think we covered some of these, but I just want to make sure. So as far as like partnerships go, we either reach out when we feel like it's a partner that we want to engage with. It could just be a phone call based on maybe a referral, but also they often just come to us by word of mouth. Like they've heard that we're helping, ABC organization, and they'd be interested in starting that relationship too. And so I think it goes both ways, whether just picking up the phone or them coming to us.
Let me jump on this question here, Elkie. How do you organize your distributions? We'd love to find established distribution sites. We always look at like San Diego Food Bank, Feeding America, Feeding San Diego, look to see where they're doing neighborhood distributions, where they have those established sites. And then we like to pop up at those and the line, and then help those folks coming through to let them know we're there with pet services, pet supplies, and then just get those folks right at the end of the line and take advantage of it. So
yeah, and during COVID, we attached ourselves to some of the schools, and we did have relationships with, but that was so we went to there when they were doing human food distribution. We would come in with the pet food. And but then we also made sure that we handed them something so they knew that we offered other services, and so they got cat dog food or both, and then some information on San Diego Humane Society and other services that we offer.
Okay, and then the next question was, do we use recurring appointments, online scheduling, walk-ups? So at our campus distribution sites, we have no questions asked policy. Somebody can come in every day. We might start asking more questions as far as learning about their pets and how we can further assist them. Why are they in need of such high volumes of or high amounts of food? But at the end of the day, it goes back to reducing those barriers and just creating more access to our resources and just simplifying that process. So we do have 4 daily distribution sites at our 4 campuses, and through those we're servicing hundreds of folks each week. But really our main where we're really moving the needle and hitting those big numbers are through those strategic partnerships and getting those services and supplies out to those under-resourced parts of San Diego, those more rural areas, the areas that are like closer to the border for us, and just hitting those folks that don't have a chance to get to our campuses and might still be struggling.
And we don't have any fancy platforms or appointment programs. Quinn gets a request, he puts a reoccurring on his Outlook, and then he knows that like partners are going to come pick up. And we track through Excel, and it's pretty basic.
And again, it's coming down to donations. So we're very careful when we do make those partnerships, especially if it's going to be a recurring situation. We want to make sure that once we sign on with a new partner, that we're going to be able to set those expectations and be there for that partner indefinitely. So just being very careful, making sure that they're servicing the types of folks that we're trying to get our resources to, and making sure that that's the right kind of partner that we want to be working with. Oh, so do you have a specific person who manages the pet pantry supplies and sorting donations? Yeah, I guess that person would be myself and my colleague Eric, and we're overseeing some of the big picture stuff, but a lot of the day-to-day activities are being done by our teams of volunteers, and they're extending our reach and allowing us to bring in large quantities, process those supplies, rebag them, box them up, prep it and get it ready for our community partners, and just keep things coming in and moving out.
And I'll say, like, on a regular basis, there's probably 2 to 4 volunteers in the warehouse.
Yep.
Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, yep. 4 days a week.
And we get those volunteers that are hardcore, and we work with them, and we elevate them, and we often have them onboarding some of our new volunteers, or shadowing those volunteers, making sure that they're positioned well, so we can be in 2 places at once.
So Sandra is asking, Sandra, we recently changed our policy where there's no questions asked. They can just come in and get services. People used to have to be a client of what we formerly called PAWS, where they would get services. They had to limit the number. They could only get food for 2 animals, et cetera, et cetera. But now we just learned, a lot of lessons during COVID, that removing those barriers, especially since we have the supplies to provide, people could come every day if they choose to pick up food. And we need to make things easy for our guest relations team as well as the community. I don't know if you have anything to add to that. Of course, we want to talk to them about spay and neuter and get them those resources to them, and know that it can happen at San Diego Humane Society, or we can point them in the right direction for outside services. But it's pretty much open. You can walk in, grab some food, and without having to fill out any paperwork or anything like that. Yeah, it's just a lot, and it's a lot of work. I mean, we can be spending our time doing other things besides looking through applications, managing, services, and it did, it was kind of a shock for those who had been working with PAWS for a really long time to not get that special one-on-one, but there are some of those that still get that special one-on-one.
I agree. Can't say any better.
Quinn and Elkie, this has been so amazing. One thing I just wanted to sort of touch on, and we're going to do a deeper dive into this. And Quinn, you touched on this when you talked about how with your partners, you're asking for content and photos and information, because it's so important to really share the information of the services. And San Diego Humane Society does a wonderful job of this, but just always wanted everyone to be mindful of when you're looking at the work through an equitable lens and, you know, the conversation of diversity, equity, and inclusion. You want to make sure that the photos that you're using are not always folks that are potentially BIPOC or from marginalized communities receiving service, because we don't want to perpetuate those stigmas, right? So, and those stereotypes. So we're going to have folks from like Heartspeak come and share some toolkits that they've created recently on how to handle those situations and those conversations. So just wanted to also thank San Diego for doing such an amazing job with that part of the work.
Anyone else? Of course, our information, at least my information, is on the HASS website, I believe. I think our emails are listed there, aren't they, Bobby? So if anyone has any questions, feel free to reach out at any time. Quinn's willing. Oh, yes, Katie.
Can I just ask a quick question? Because I've got to know this. Do you take your brands and mix them all together, or are you just literally scooping into bags whatever you got? Are you mixing it up?
When we get to a bag and we don't have a similar bag, we do end up mixing if we have to. And over time, our clients understand that, and it hasn't been an issue for us. But
Okay.
As far as if we get a pallet in and it's all mixed bags, or we're working with a bunch of mixed donated goods, we just advise our volunteers to try to find that similar type of food that matches up to what they just finished rebagging, and then just continue that trend. And when you get to that point where you're going from natural balance to kibbles and bits, and you have to mix them, you have to mix them. It's fine.
Okay. And what
Again,
about like the like beef and chicken? You just try to keep with that too?
Yeah, I mean, it's such a small percentage of pet owners that have those restrictions where, you know, they can only have a specific protein. We just, at the end of the day, we might not be a match for that specific pet owner that has those specific needs for their pet. It's really just trying to create a service that can help as many people as possible, and structuring it where it just helps the masses. And you, when you try to get into those, you know, individual specific orders, you're just slowing down the whole process. And you just got to remember that the need extends, you know, beyond that individual pet and that specific, you know, poultry need. You just got to, unfortunately, think big picture at the end of the day.
Yeah, they really don't know what they're getting
Yeah.
when they come in. I mean, it's yeah. They
Okay.
don't, there's
Thank
no
you.
listing. It's like they know they're getting it from us. That's about all they know. And it's
And
dog
again-
or cat.
And we're setting those expectations that this is supplemental. We're trying to take on the, you know, responsibilities of feeding your pet day in and day out. We'd love to, but we're trying to help as many folks as possible.
And we've talked
Gotcha.
a lot about food today, and I know we have a surplus of, I shouldn't say surplus, that's a bad word, additional supplies that are helpful out in the community as well. And that is, you know, as people are bringing things in, it's nice just to have those items on hand, but it's not what a part, you know, a food pantry really looks like. But having those supplies when you're out in the community and you see somebody who needs a leash, there are times, you know, we kind of look at our used things that are turned in. Fortunately for us, our Greater Goods partnership allows us to get supplies as well as food, but we do also do some call outs for leashes, collars, harnesses, things like that, treats, toys. So that is a big part of what we do, but the priority is the food. And right now we have a ton of litter, so it's nice that that's a bonus that we're providing litter right now, and that kind of comes and goes in waves.
I'm starting to put a couple files in the chat. Take a look. It's some of our inserts that we use. You have a dog food insert, and then we have a donation slip that we put in with our boxes containing cans, just some guidance for our partners to distribute those cans. But like Elkie said or touched on, we're taking in all pet items, you know, food and supplies, and really just trying to process it and package it and redistribute it for the masses. And that's what it comes down to. And you might have an event where that audience, it might not be the right place to have food. It might be a better audience to have, you know, some toys or a Frisbee or more educational materials. So it's really just knowing the right audience and the right supplies to plug in, and making sure you're making the most impact possible.
Quinn, do you see that for the 4-pound, 8-pound bag? Do you know what size that is, like gallon, pint?
Yeah, I'm going to pull up a link right now. We use the Uline gusseted bag. I'll put the link up right now. Bear with me.
And I don't know, Quinn, how Greater Good looks across the country. For some of the smaller shelters, might there be a larger shelter that has those partnerships where they could be getting food from? Would that work that way, or is it not quite?
It's, when you're not part of their partners, it becomes whenever they might have an extra truck that they can ship you.
Yeah.
I'm down here at Palm Valley Animal Supply or Animal Society, and we've gotten 3 trucks this year, but we were just told by them that they're not going to have any for us for at least the first quarter.
So that's just good to know for all of you out there, that there are large national groups that are providing food for pantries and things like that. So just maybe looking into your neck of the woods and see what's possible. Okay, it's 1:59. What are we talking about next time, Bobby?
Let's see. I think I saw is Courtney. Are you still on here? Do you want to give us a little highlight of the speaker you're bringing to our next meeting?
Yes, hi everybody. So next week we're going to pivot a little bit with our conversation, talking about the importance of community engagement or enactment outside of pet or animal welfare. So I'm super excited to get the human and animal enactment attached across both worlds and see if we can get some information to y'all. So I'm hoping to see everyone's faces. I think next 2 weeks is when we're coming back. Yep, next 2 weeks, so we can have a discussion about that.
Okay, I'm going to put Quinn's email in the chat.
Thank you.
So then it's there before everyone leaves.
Yeah, please don't hesitate to reach out. I know we kind of covered a lot of stuff today, but if you have any questions or want to deep dive anything or just pick my brain or bounce something off of me, I might not have all the answers, but I can just give you some direction or advice from doing this for 10 years. I feel like I've seen most of what you can face as a pet pantry coordinator.
Well, thank you, everybody. We'll see you in a couple weeks.
Thanks for the time, everyone. I really appreciate it.